And hello, everybody. We are live.
Hi, everyone.
We, we've been testing the sound, everybody. So, actually, we've been doing it for about an hour. So, give us a few minutes to get everybody on and make sure we can hear everybody. Can you hear us really good? If you can hear us really good, could you let us know in the comments before we
Hi, I
begin?
can hear you.
I
You,
can hear you too.
good,
I can
good.
hear too.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Emma.
Yep.
Yes, and I don't have a crackle.
Yay! Everybody can hear each other. All right, so I guess we can begin. Hi, Christian. Look, we have Christian Anthony with us on Facebook and a few others on the line. Let's see here who we have on our YouTube. We have a few others on the YouTube. Thanks for joining us and welcome to the Glass Table where we sit and talk about issues. And today we are finishing our introduction to the ladies of activism. Last week you heard from me, Spencer Tyler. PJ is our guest, or not our guest. She's a regular, but she's gonna give us her story today. And we have Molly. Molly told her story last week, as well as Sharon Tyson-Tovar and Emma. So who wants to go first? PJ or Chessa? I'm gonna put y'all on the hot seat.
Okay.
I'll go first.
All right,
Yeah.
PJ. Yay! They say they can hear us, so great. That's great.
Okay, good. Well, I don't know where to start. Where did y'all start?
Well, I think we start with, I guess, why you left. Like, what woke you
Um,
up?
what woke me? Well, I think it was little things over time that really woke me up. Like seeing the way people got treated, then when I got married, seeing how I was treated and stuff like that. Slowly over time, I realized that this doesn't seem like the right thing. And then I got out and then I did some research, and that's when I really realized that it's a cult.
So it sounds like you were, for a spell, physically out but mentally in, and then you did research.
Yeah.
You know what? I was physically out, mentally in for a spell, and I always say that I was me personally was the worst type of Jehovah Witness because I always felt like I had to go back. And I think with you, that's great that you were able to go ahead and research. I was out myself a couple times, and I never felt the need to actually research. I always felt like, oh, I got to go back to the hall and get myself together. So we did a post earlier, if you guys saw, in our new group, the Glass Table Discussion, where we posted about uh your story, PJ, in part, that was featured in the Free Press along with me, with Tress. I can never say her name. How do you say her name? Is it Tressa's Baldus? Tressa Baldus, maybe, from the Free Press. She just won an award. Actually,
Teresa,
is it Teresa? It might
I
be
think.
Teresa Baldus, maybe.
Hmm.
But she's a writer or a journalist for the Free Press, and she did a story, a follow up story on, her name escapes me, Lauren Stewart, who was
Hmm.
the subject of a murder suicide, a Jehovah's Witness. If you guys aren't familiar with that story, we'll link the uh, newspaper in the comments below. But you were featured along with other ex Jehovah Witnesses who were telling their stories about shunning and how it led to the suicide or of other people, of other ex Jehovah Witnesses, right?
Right, right. I had commented because I was reading all the newspaper articles that she was writing about the Stewart family, and it brought up some old stuff in me. Um, and I had to say something, so I made a comment, and she reached out to me through Facebook and asked me if I was interested in having my sister's story told. And I was like, yeah. And then I started telling her what happened. happened, and she was really shocked. And I didn't realize she was going to put my story up there first in the newspaper. When I read it, I was kind of like, oh, I thought it was going to be about the Stewarts first.
Right.
Is
It was
is it
first page.
is it too
And
difficult,
then,
PJ? Is it too difficult for you to tell everyone a little bit about your sister's story?
well, I mean, her birthday was on the 11th of this month, and it's a sensitive subject always around the February when she killed herself,
I'm sorry.
and March when it's her birthday, and I start thinking about it. But I'm going to try to get through it today and tell some of the story. I had to kind of piece together what all happened from talking to friends and family, because I was so little and I really didn't understand what was going on. And I talked to my sister's best friend from school, who was a neighbor of ours named Stacy. And she kind of filled in some gaps that I couldn't remember. I had talked to my grandmother before she passed away, and she had filled in some gaps, because I kind of, after everything had happened, had blocked a lot of it out. It's part of the PTSD.
Yeah.
You disassociate from what happened to try to block it out. And I had done a lot of that. So I was like, I need people to help me fill in these places that I've just completely blocked out because it was so traumatic. But basically what happened was she met a man at the VFW through my grandmother, and my Uncle Dale had taken her there. You know, we're not allowed to go to the VFW. If she had gotten caught, she probably would have got disfellowship just for going to that place and hanging out. She fell in love with him. He was worldly, of course, and we all know how witnesses are discouraged from getting involved with worldly people that aren't Jehovah's Witnesses, because then they lose a little bit of that control that they have over you.
Right.
And she got caught by my mother engaging in premarital sex, and that was all that the elders needed to disfellowship her. And then, you know, she got scared because she was fixing to be disfellowshipped, and she found out that the man that she was engaged to was talking to a medium to speak to his dead grandmother, and she immediately thought, you know, this is demonism. I can't marry this man. I'm freaking out. I remember her crying to my mom and dad about being scared to marry him after she found out what he was doing because of the indoctrination. And my dad saying, you don't have to. And my mom saying, well, you kind of made your bed. You have to sleep in it. And she kind of freaked out. And then they were like, no, we're calling it off. She called it off. And that's a big no-no, too, to get engaged and then call an engagement off. So she had messed up twice in the eyes of the elders. And it had been talked about, like gossip had gotten around the Kingdom Hall. So it hadn't been kept quiet. And, you know, when it's not kept quiet, the elders have to do a show of power. So they disfellowshipped her, even though she was very, very sorry for what she did. I remember her saying that she was really sorry. And they kept saying, oh, you're just sorry that you got caught. You're not really sorry. You're just sorry you got caught. And so they disfellowshipped her, and I just remember her moping around the house and crying, and it just made my mom mad. It made my dad mad. They didn't really know how to react to her being depressed like that all the time. and they were both super busy. My mom was trying to regular pioneer and go out and field service all the time, and she had me. I was 8. She had my little sister. She was 4, and so I got sick and stayed home from school one day, and my sister was babysitting me. My big sister was babysitting me, and my mom had taken my little sister out in field service that morning.
Take your time, PJ. Take your time. I'm so sorry.
And she was really happy that day. I know it's a sign now. But yeah,
Go ahead. You want to take a breath? You want to take a moment to
yeah,
take a breath? Let's take a breath.
yeah.
You know, I I can identify what you're saying about filling in the blanks because I remember when uh Teresa called me, and when she started to ask me about my ex Jehovah Witness family friend who killed himself, shot himself in the head unexpectedly. We didn't even know he had a big Jehovah Witness family who loved them. They were all in various levels within the organization. His death was a shock to many. It woke up a couple people, even woke up one of his family members who is an apostate now, I hear, which an undercover apostate. How about that? I'll just put it that way. I would never, say their name or anything like that, but it devastated us when she started to ask us the detail. Well, when the journalist started asking details about, that and the other person that I know that tried to commit suicide. I mean, I didn't have the extra Jehovah Witness community then. I always say that, I was alone. I was just like a ranger by myself before I even knew that there was an extra Jehovah Witness community online. And when she started to ask those details, it was a dust up of feelings. I mean, I didn't even realize that I was still feeling all of that stuff when she started asking questions. And then, journalists are more detailed. They ask, and it's her job, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to be detailed and ask for a timeline. And then you're thinking of memories that you didn't think of before. And then, of
Oh yeah.
course, it was the after, because I remember doing a video before the newspaper hit and doing a video after. And I just remember afterwards, of course, you had the Jehovah Witnesses flooding the paper comments and saying crazy stuff. And it was even talking about that is stressful. It's almost like you're reliving it all over again.
Mm-hmm. I got in a couple of arguments in the comment section.
Yeah. Yeah. I've dragged a few people in the comment section that day. I was just very emotional. I mean, and the thing about it, they don't understand that the triggers, because they're so nonchalant. It's more like, oh, get over it, or this person should have came back to Jehovah, or they say really things that are really callous. And some of the things that we used to say to each other that we thought were comforting, and they're really not. It's just Jehovah Witness anecdotes in order that we repeat among each other. When something bad happens, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or well, you should come back to Jehovah, because if you don't come back, you're not gonna see this person again in paradise. That's the thing I used to hear, and
Mm-hmm.
that I was not ready to hear that, and devastated when I did hear it. So so you talked about your sister being featured there. Obviously, that drove you into. Well, let me ask you: were you an activist before, or was that one of the things that drove you into activism? And
That was one of the things that drove me into activism.
and
Just
you
that,
and
like, when I finally found the ex Jehovah Witness community, and when you find it, you kind of just tell your whole story, just blurt it out to these people because you're finally talking to people that understand you.
Right. Right.
And that's what happened. I just told everything. All of a sudden, I just told everything. And it was easier to type out than it is to just say it. And they responded to it, and then they came and told me all of their experiences, and I started putting two and two together. There were so many people that had killed themselves.
Mm.
So many.
You had a chance to be a part of a project for some type of memorial for ex-Jehovah Witnesses, right?
Yeah, memorial on memorial. Chessa had started that last year, and I participated down here in Mississippi. I protested outside of my mother's local Kingdom Hall during their memorial. She wasn't there. I found out later that only the Spanish-speaking congregation met at the actual Kingdom Hall for the memorial, that the English-speaking part of the congregation that was in there rented out a building in Moss Point to have the memorial. So, but I still stood out there with the banner that said "Shunning Kills," and some witnesses walked by and said hello and everything. So, and they read the signs, and the people that drove by read the signs, so my point got across.
I've seen a few of your protests because you usually go live.
Yeah.
You do.
I put a couple of them up on
remember-
YouTube.
I remember that when PJ, didn't you take it was a big red banner and you wrapped it around your car?
Oh, that was when I protested the local assembly. My mom was at that, so she did eventually see it. I had that one, and I had the one about the Australian Royal Commission and the 1,006 different pedophiles that had never been reported to the police. All of that. I had that and the shunning kills out at the same time. And then I had another banner that said that there was, just basically told them, look, there's an ex-Jehovah's Witness community out there online. Find us. There's support.
Right. Right. All righty. So what are some things that you're involved in now or looking to be involved in the future? If people want to find you, first of all, they can find you on Facebook, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Find me on Facebook. Some things that I'm looking to get into. I want to do some letter writing campaigns. I was going to protest the local memorial again this year. I'll have to see, because of the work that I do. I can't chance getting sick because I take care of elderly sick people, and yeah.
Right.
So I may have to wait on that and not do that this year. Just do the letter writing part.
That's a huge campaign this year. Chessa's going to probably tell us a little bit more about that and how she's involved in that this year with the I'll keep calling it the mom protest. It's not mom, it's memorial on memorial. But every time I see the acronym, I'm like, the mom. Oh, the mom. Anyway. So Chessa, are you ready? No.
So sorry,
piggy-
guys, but PJ, I heard a lot of your story, and I just want to say you're so strong.
She
and
is.
I do admire you. I didn't know that.
Oh. Thank you. I admire you as well. All of you. All of you.
We love you, PJ. You know that.
Okay, well, I guess it's my turn now.
Yeah, Chessa's on the hot seat. Well, PJ kind of gave you a nice segue into the acronym, the mom protest, which she said you started, which I did not know. Chessa, why am I today years old learning that you started? I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, other people have like read about my story and stuff on the newspaper, the documentary. I'm not trying to say that in a weird way, but my story's out there in the media. But basically, I was raised a witness. I was born in, and my father was an elder, and my mom was really active in the congregation. And we ended up moving to, well, we lived in Chicago, and we ended up moving to a small congregation to serve where the need was greater when I was about 5 years old. My dad was wanting to do more. The circuit overseer had visited recently, so he spoke with the CO and the DO, and he talked about wanting to do more. And so they sent us to a congregation in small town Illinois, and we visited there a couple times before we moved there, obviously, just to get to know everybody. And there was this family that had 3 kids, and one of them was the same age as me, and then there was 2 other kids. And so we would hang out, and we spent a few nights there at their house, like having dinner or whatever. And I really got along well with their kids. So we went to move there. And the night we were moving in, it was like 11 o'clock at night, I think. We were still moving. And the mom said, just take Chessa to our house and she can spend the night there and you can pick her up at the meeting in the morning, Saturday night. And so my parents said yes. And so I went over there. And the oldest brother ended up raping me. So it was a shock to my parents. I went to the congregation the next day. I was acting very different. My eyes were open. I was like in shock.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I'm so
and they never,
sorry.
it's okay. It took them time to realize what had happened, but they took me home, and I'm thankful that I talked about it. I know that there's a lot of people who didn't when they were kids, um, but for some reason I did, and so my dad ended up trying to call the police, trying to get things done, and then there was a lot of interference. They really done, and that's the reason why I came out into activism now. Um, but I spent a lot of my life pioneering. I always felt like I was on the outside because of my situation. Like we moved to a congregation, and somehow they always found out that I was a rape victim. I don't know how. Either the letters got sent with us when we moved, or so. I was always like weirdly shunned that way. Like everybody was like, "Oh, watch out! She's might be might be difficult in the future." I remember there was a boy that I used to hang out with when I was a teenager, and his dad told him, "Oh, well, she was raped, so she might be hypersexual. Be careful."
Oh wow.
So there was always like, yeah, there was always a stigma being a rape, and so because of that, and because my family was obviously going through a lot, they also were trauma victims too because of what happened. We moved around a lot. We moved to Arizona, we moved to Missouri, we moved to um, Texas, Taiwan. We moved all over the place, and a lot of it was just trying to keep moving to get as far away from that as possible. But no matter where we went, it always followed us. So it kind of haunted my family, and my dad especially, it haunted him a lot. He stayed on as an elder up until I was in my early 20s, and I started pioneering when I was 14. I went to pioneer school at 16, um, and then I just kept going. And then I ended up getting married, and I went into sign language. And during that time period, I started getting really sick, like autoimmune disease issues. And so there was a year that I spent completely in bed, just bedridden. I ended up being in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk. I was using canes too in between that time. Lots of chronic pain, stuff like that. And that went on for like a period of 5 to 6 years. I still have issues, but not as bad as that. So um, in that time, I was home a lot because I couldn't go to the meetings. I was too sick. And whenever I did go, it was kind of awkward being that conspicuous. If you sit there in a wheelchair at the meeting, it's just weird. So I started looking on the computer and looking on the internet. And there was this guy who had a YouTube channel. His name was Exjw Gilead Missionary or something like that. I don't know. But when I first came across his channel, I thought he was a Gilead graduate. I didn't realize that he was an XJW. So I saw videos about his experience being a missionary. And he started with the Gilead Gilead school, and I started talking about the problems. He started talking about the Mexico and the Malawi situation and the difference with, going to different countries, and some of them would be imprisoned because they didn't want to go into military service. So, like most Koreans that I knew went through 3 years of prison, 1 to 3 years, because they were military. So it was always stuff they were going on about. So, I started waking up. I started looking into stuff more, and then I ended up here.
All right. So I watched your lives, as you know. Usually when you go live, I try to catch them. Did you want to tell us about your upcoming activities? I know you got a chance to do it, but you get a chance to plug it a little bit here while we're on the line.
Okay. A lot of my activism started when I started my article. I started learning how to speak out. That was one of the hardest things for me because I'd always been so silent. And so one of the things that I wanted to do the most is encourage other people to be able to speak out as well. So Memorial is one of the ways that we're doing that this year. When it comes to grieving the people who have passed away, because a lot of us who lost loved ones, PJ, I know you'll resonate with this, but we'll go to their funerals at the Kingdom Halls. They'll spend 3 minutes on them, if that, and then the rest of the time we'll be trying to recruit. Weird stuff, like maybe your family member was an accident in your life, but they'll say, you know what, so and so loved the field service. Let's turn to Mark chapter. So it really takes away from our, when we're shunned. That also takes away from our ability to grieve. Some of us can't even go to our family's funerals. I wanted to start Memorial and have their loved ones recognized and to have their names up there for everyone to see. We had a vigil last year, died about 2 months before that happened. So I had been adding everybody else's names to the list before he passed away, and then I had to add his too, which insane.
Heartbreaking, of course.
It's a night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice that we get together on the night of the memorial, and you can protest or not. It's up to you. Protested. Sharon was in Ohio. She had an awesome group that got together. PJ, you did an awesome thing for Memorial. There was a lot of people who interacted with it at International. Together, we read the list of names, and then we also handed out information or talked to the public about Watchtower's policies and how they'd affect the people that had passed away. So it's a good way to also let the public know what's up and kind of those names kind of concreted in there that this really is something that takes people's lives. And then when you have people out there talking about it who have loved ones who have passed away, like I have my dad, PJ has her sister, Sharon, you have a lot of family members on that list, which is heartbreaking. It's cathartic, but it's also eye-opening for a lot of people. So,
well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Chessa. I'm in the background trying to work on the sound here. Let's go to the comments here. I just wanted to make sure that we get everybody involved here because it is a glass table, y'all. Let's see here. Let's see here. We have someone from YouTube, Nigel. He says, "Good evening, ladies." That he clicked the news article that it was such a tragic and traumatic story of Amber's. So PJ, your story is still helping people even today. That's one of the things that I take. What's the word I'm looking for? Consolation in, even though that particular article put me in a position where my family was like super upset, and some of them were the ones that knew about it. And then I was having this overwhelming sense of not wanting anybody to even know I was in the paper. It is why I used the alias Spencer Tyler. But the reaction that I got from people at the time when I was attending a church, I was visiting different churches and I was able to speak about our experiences within the Exjw Witness community, to be able to actually meet people I met a person in a crowd one day at one of the engagements that I was speaking at, who actually had a brother who committed suicide over the shunning. And it was just amazing to me because I had only seen that online or had ever come in contact with people on that online. Can you guys still hear us? I just want to make sure you guys can hear us. Okay, let's see here. It says we have a lot of comments about the feed. Yeah, I've muted a few. We've muted some of our mics here, so maybe that is probably helping the feed a lot. They're saying the sound is a lot better. Here's Sharon. Sharon's back, y'all. Okay, and let's see. We have I wish I could pronounce your name from Facebook. It says, I don't want to bring it down, but in answer to your question posed earlier, yes, several people I've known have had suicidal thoughts, and I don't know if I'll ever not. I appreciate all your hard work. Super helpful. Thank you so much for joining us today. And here's the thing. So many of us, I wish there was some type of survey or something about how many of us know how many ex-Jehovah Witnesses at least know of, have heard of someone committing suicide. I think that we would probably be astounded at the number because the community is very small, even online. I mean, everybody know each other.
Actually, last year, I believe it was the beginning of 2018, Sally Peterson from Arizona did a survey for college, and several of us promoted that survey. And the ratio, I mean, she asked everyone several different questions, but the ratio was so high for suicides and suicide attempts and no blood deaths and sex abuse. It was just an astronomical number.
Wow. I do think I do remember that survey. I think she had to do it for her college or something like that a while back. Or something like that. Was that survey? I think I was able to participate in that. Before we switch gears, go ahead.
I believe the results they might have been recorded on the VAA, their official website, I think.
Hello. She said she's just joining us. Hi, Janelle. On the VAA website. Okay. So everybody, if you want,
they did their own. They also did a survey.
I remember that.
All right, people. It looks like we've already been through the comments. Before we switch gears, did anybody want to? I think Sharon actually came up with this idea that we talk about two things. Yes, Sharon. That we talk about our two challenges. Am I getting it right? Two challenges that we've had since leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? We're naming the two, and I think I guess I'll start. Yeah. The challenges that I've had since leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, number one, when I first left the Jehovah's Witnesses, or I was on my own, it was just me. I was waking up alone in my house on the computer at night. Y'all, I'm trying to tell you, I was on the computer at night under a different alias, hiding my browser history, and I was married. So my husband thought I was cheating on him. And the sad thing about it is that I would rather him think I was cheating on him than researching a Watchtower. Ain't that crazy? So, yes. And you guys probably know of the tell me if I'm too loud, y'all. You probably know of the activist who actually assisted me. His name is Eric Wilson. Before Eric Wilson was Eric Wilson on YouTube, he had a small blog that I had been following. And to make a long story short, it was another pioneer sister, because I was regular pioneering at the time, who had doubts, who tried to get me to go to his site. And I went to his site fully fully intended on saving my friend because I'm like, y'all, she trying to be an apostate. No, she's not about to. I'm not about to lose my friend. She's apostatizing. I'm about to go in there and tell everybody else she's not going to the site no more. And when I went there, of course, I was the same, a kind of like the Jehovah Witnesses that we encounter online. I was a jerk, just going back and forth and not listening and shutting down. But more so than me being a jerk, which might just be my personality, which had nothing to do with me being a J-Dub, by the way. But it was mostly my indoctrination. I think that's what people were getting is me, that vibe that I was fighting indoctrination. So that challenge for me was taking the things that I had been learning and now telling my husband that I no longer wanted to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore. And my husband was a super duper J-Dub, like J-Dub for life, all day, every day, was gonna die a J-Dub, raised a J-Dub. That's just, when I say J-Dub, I mean Jehovah's Witnesses, you guys, for those who are not familiar. But yeah, it was my challenge was getting him, and finally he came from being went from being a fader to thinking about activism. So I'm excited about that. We've done a few videos ourselves to try to talk about our journey, and we do have a video to talk about why we left the Jehovah's Witnesses ourselves. And I guess another challenge is unindoctrinating my children, because I was a Jehovah's Witness that was very active in the ministry, obviously, because I was pioneering and active in the Kingdom Hall. And we had it was a small circle of friends that everybody knew each other in my area. Even though Detroit is a big area, the Jehovah Witnesses in our area everybody know each other. Everybody know each other. And it was a challenge getting my children to leave. My daughter would cry. Uh, she thought that we were doing something bad or doing something against Jehovah, and watching her journey has been rewarding for me because it has let me know that I didn't do this for nothing. That my child now has, that I'm sowing into generations and impacting generations beyond me. And that's what all of us as activists want to do, because there were activists before us who paved the way before us. You just want to go a little further, reach a little higher, go a little wider than the activists before you. So, and Sharon and all of you women, PJ, Chessa, Emma, Molly, you guys inspire me so much. And I I call myself a baby activist because I do a little activism, like a little here and there. I run a few groups. I have a group with, I think, over 4,000 uh, people now with Jehovah Witnesses, and a mix of us in there, but mostly Jehovah Witnesses. And I don't know if it's the pioneer in me, y'all, but I do get a joy of being able to try to help. Emma, you've been in the trenches with me, so you and I are in most of these groups talking to these Jehovah Witnesses, and it seems like it's not. When I tell you that, it seems like sometimes that they are so indoctrinated, you're talking to a wall. It can be super irritating. But had I not persisted, my husband wouldn't be out, my kids wouldn't be out. And I had an opportunity to have an African Jehovah Witness I know that I talked to, who is now fading, and a deaf Jehovah's Witness. Well, I don't know if you would call him a Jehovah's Witness because he was really studying, who just turned away and was just like, no thanks. But he was like totally into the Jehovah's Witnesses after the brief encounter that he's had with them. He was almost a full Jehovah's Witness. It lets you know how the indoctrination is really strong. Anyway, I have talked over and over. I have lots of challenges, as you can see. Lots of challenges after leaving the J-Dub. So what about everybody else? Who want to go next? PJ? You next on the screen, honey.
Challenges after leaving the Jehovah's. Well, I got kicked out, and since my big sister did commit suicide after being shunned, I just did not shun people who got kicked out.
Okay.
And so when I got kicked out, I had all these ex-Jehovah's Witnesses that had already been kicked out that I didn't stop talking to, that were like, hey, welcome to the club.
Right.
So I guess the majority of my challenges was was money. I had no money. I had no job. I had 2 kids. My house was being taken back by the bank. They were trying to repossess my car, which I was needing to sleep in. I had to give my kids to my Jehovah's Witness mom for a little while I went to college to learn how to do something to take care of myself. And so that was a big challenge. Just, you know, breaking the rules, being physically out but mentally in, going to college, making worldly friends, hanging out with ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. I was breaking all the rules before I even knew that it was a cult. And then I did the research and found out that was the hardest was getting over the shock of finding it was a lie.
Right.
That was the
Right.
second guess everything that you know.
Including who you are, which is we are all born with identity, right, or some type of identity, and to have that your identity, like who you are, stripped from you. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it happened when I was old as I don't know what. I was well into my 30s, and I'm like, I don't know how to make friends, or how do I do this, or how do I do that. It was the naivety that I had. Well, I talk to y'all about that all the time. The naivety I had was really scary. Miss Molly, what about you? Challenges after leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses. I think your mic is on mute, by the way.
There we go. So, so just to add something to that, like second guessing even who you are thing. When I was woke up from at around 15 to 16 years old, and then basically I cut clean from my school and all that. I went into a new class, new people, new everything. I just needed to cut clean and just empty it all out of the system. And basically, I got into this new class, and one of my classmates came out as gay. So when he did, that was the bit of information that made my indoctrination shatter for real. Like at that time I was around 18. So he came out as gay, and I was like, whoa, okay, this human being will need my help, because he was like, I'm not sure if I will be able to come out to my parents and all that. So I was like, well, he will need my help, so whatever indoctrination I may have left needs to go, because I will need to be there for him. And about the time when I was 19, I started to realize that I'm like, whoa, I'm not straight. So it was like a whole like rainbow of what the fuck and who the fuck am I? Like it was crazy. And actually I am now turning 24 this year, and only around 1.5, 2 years ago did I finally find the identity that actually matches me fully. So just to say, yes, you second guess even yourself. It's crazy. So just to put it out there and just say that that's so something that I think everyone can relate to, especially queer XJWs.
Well, yeah, of
Who were like
course.
beaten over the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it took so long. It's like
Okay,
9 years that I have been on.
do you guys remember that song? Oh, may we ever live up to our name? I don't know how to sing, y'all, and I'm not gonna even try. Okay, I don't remember the song. And I know y'all, the Jehovah Witnesses, if y'all lurking on here, I know y'all got a new song book. I'm talking about the throwback, not the remix y'all got. But anyway,
I try not to remember those.
I'm not trying to trigger anybody, but what made me think of that is that we were taught that the name of Jehovah's Witnesses, or their name was more important than our own. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and our identity was tied up in being one of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Is, oh, maybe we ever lived up to the name. I don't remember all of the words, even if they were talking about Jehovah. I mean, his name is not our name, and so when we're stripped of the organization, we really become stripped of our identity. We don't know what the hell to do after that. I remember being at a standstill at a crossroad. I was losing my family over this religion. My mom and everybody. My husband was walking away, and I'm thinking they might take my kids or whatever, and over me just leaving. Just because I had a change of mind, y'all. I wasn't a bad person, wasn't beating my kids, y'all, wasn't doing none of that, but was about to lose everything just because over a disagreement. And them feeling like, oh, what, I wasn't following the rules or whatever. At the same time, when I was no longer a Jehovah's Witness, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know, because we are in a group think tank. It's like group identity. I don't know. I don't really know if I'm explaining this correctly. If y'all understand what I'm saying, it's like our identity. We're all one, a collective.
Well, one thing that I learned when I went to the ICSA conference in Pennsylvania 2 years ago, and ICSA is International Cultic Studies Institute. Anyways, when I went there, one of the topics that they discussed was losing your identity when you join a cult, and one of the reasons is because you learn selflessness to an extreme degree. So you're encouraged not to have hobbies because they might interfere with the meetings. You're encouraged to if you're a woman, you're encouraged really to stay home and pioneer. And all of your friends are in the cult, so you totally surround yourself, and then TV for the most part, and you don't get an education. So all if you're born in, especially, which I was, all you know is what they tell you, and then you lose yourself. And they have you so busy. That's what cults do. We used to go to, they called it 5 meetings a week. So all your free time is taken up. So yeah, you lose your identity. You don't find it until you get out.
And do some work, like some self-work, like with therapy, because for a while, I'm just gonna keep it real, y'all. When I remember being in my car at work and reading, like waking up and just like, do you remember that phase that you go in and you just like consuming everything? You like, oh my God, they did this. Oh my God, they did this. Oh no, like that phase when you're first waking up. And I just remember being in my car at work for weeks at a time. I would go to lunch and just drink myself into a stupor. Like, honestly, just drink and drink and drink. And it wasn't until I actually crashed and burned and went to therapy that I started to realize that I was in a lot of pain, which was hard for me to acknowledge because of who I am, or who I've been. But not only was I in a lot of pain, but I had to be okay with starting over. I'm not a person. I don't like starting over on anything. I don't like starting over. If I make a recipe and it's a new recipe, if it don't come out right. If it's a game and I get out of the game, I don't want to start over. I don't like starting over on anything. And it was only through therapy and working through issues and working with a professional. And it was hard to find the right one at first. But I was able recently to be able to use Bonnie Ziemann's book, she is an ex-Jehovah Witness psychotherapists who who wrote books. And one of the books that I gave my therapist was a therapist handbook on how to handle the needs of ex-Jehovah Witnesses or people who've come out of cults, because one of the most challenging things, I guess, for all of us is finding somebody who understands us and what we've been through
Yeah.
and can walk through it with us. Because some people understand, but they won't walk through it with you. And some people walk through it with you, but they don't understand. But for having that combination is hard to find.
Yeah, like it's crazy because I'm just very open about how fucked up my mental health is, because it is.
So who's gonna
Like,
talk next? Oh, I can't hear her. Can you guys hear her?
Yeah. Can you hear us, Sharon? Oh, y'all, it's
I can hear you.
our issues with our sound, y'all.
oh god.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just can't
I
hear
can
her.
Go ahead, Molly.
Okay, so like I'm open about my mental health because it would be crazy not to. Like, honestly, my mental health is fucked up. My attention span is that of a basket of dried dead flies. Like, I don't remember anything at
Yeah.
all. Like, if you ask me what I had for lunch, I would be like, I don't know. And it's just crazy because I'm open about it, and people who have been abused, but they were never J-dubs, they don't understand. Like, I'm not gonna say names or anything, but they go like, get over it, and I'm like, no, I you don't understand. I got over it. That's not why I'm doing activism, and I think many people misunderstand when
That
you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Melody. I thought you were finished. This is a delay here. So if you hear us
Yeah,
tripping over each other, it's because it's kind of a delay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you had it better than I did because your mother didn't beat you, or you weren't beaten. And I'm like, okay, but this is not a competition. Someone who drowns in a glass of water is still as dead as someone who drowns at the Mariana Trench. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, how much trauma you endured. Really, I mean, sure, it matters, and I empathize with anyone who went through shunning and any kind of abuse, because no one should go through that, obviously. But the point is that trauma is trauma, and everyone deals and is affected by it differently. And I see so many people not understanding that, even if they are trauma survivors themselves, which is bonkers to me. And therapy, yeah, it's super hard to get access to, especially if you want someone who you don't need to break it down to, because you don't want to go like, yeah, the Jehovah's Witnesses have this role and this role that traumatized me. You just want to be understood. And it's
Exactly.
hard. It's hard to come by because you don't want to spend hours blabbering about the Elder's Handbook or the elders. You want to talk about you. That's the point of therapy. But if someone who doesn't even know anything, oh, Jehovah's Witnesses, okay, I know them. Why do you keep mentioning them? Like, because they traumatized me. And it in my case, the what they did was like the soft core thing. Like, sure, everything, like Chessa said, TV is basically like Storno, and any kind of entertainment is like basically nothing unless it's like J-dub stuff.
Of course.
But and but I witnessed my friends, like the family who indoctrinated me, lived like a few houses away, so we spent so much time together. And well, after a point, people stop possessing the ability to hide themselves. So what happened is the father's abusive nature came out more and more in my presence. And once my mother locked me in the house, I managed to think and realize like I was not influenced by JWs. I was influenced by my mother because she kept screaming at me and all that, but I was in my room, I was alone, and I was like thinking. And when you're alone and think, well, that's a dangerous stuff for Jehovah's Witness to do, because then
Yes, girl, that's a dangerous mix. Don't get to thinking for yourself now. You know they're gonna put you out.
don't get a woman alone and thinking.
No, you
She's
can't
gonna
think for
have
yourself. Let's bring
she's
Emma
gonna have
in. We
dangerous
haven't heard from
ideas.
Emma. Emma, can you hear us? I
I
think you're
can
on
hear
mute.
you.
I think your mic is on mute. Did I put your mic on? I may have done that. Wait, hang on.
Yeah, she's on mute.
No, I didn't. There you go.
Okay. There she is.
There's a time delay here, so it looks like I'm still on mute.
Oh, that's what it is.
I hear you.
So why don't you tell us some challenges that you've had after leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses? Maybe when you first left, or challenges that you have even now. That's what we're going around the table.
Okay. But when I first left, I literally left on my own. I did touch on in the last video that I moved in with an unbaptized publisher guy. And there was one girl that the elders told me to stop hanging around with that I worked with, and I refused, and I kept her as a friend. So basically those were the only two people that I had when I left. So yeah, I kind of walked away on my own, and then I had to try and make new friends, new social life. Fortunately, the person that I was with, he met some people from work, and then they come back to our house. They then became my new group of friends. So yeah, that was a big challenge. Second challenge, I think, probably is being shunned. Being shunned by my mum has really affected me, because even things like just going into town, if I need to do some shopping, it's kind of like it triggers my anxiety in case I'm going to bump into my mum, because I've literally stood in shop queues where she's stood in front of me, and it just triggers my anxiety so bad that if I go out, that I'm going to bump into her, and it gave me kind of agoraphobic tendencies. And yeah, I'd say that's probably like my second biggest challenge.
Well, so Sharon, Emma, I definitely can identify with that. My mother treats me as if I'm dead. I have so many Jehovah's Witnesses that live in my area. I mean, it's packed. It's like it's a convention. Every time I go to the store or every time I go to the mall, they are everywhere. And here's the thing. I know that's a weird, you know what? Let me just stop and say that's weird for me to say that they are everywhere. Because I used to get mad as a Jehovah's Witness when people would say they're everywhere. But they are everywhere. Okay, I guess we were everywhere. Aren't they? You can't. And some people have found it to be better just to move to a different location if that's something that you can do. Just move somewhere else. And that's something that I plan on doing, because I'm not going to be running into y'all everywhere I go. Not everywhere I go. And it's the weird shuffle that they do. They kind of bow their heads down, and they kind of don't look at you, and they don't want to make eye contact. At least the ones in my area. Or this one guy almost fell over in an aisle just trying to avoid me. Like the plague, like like I had a disease or something. It was weird. It was just like he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then it was like he was sorry for saying sorry because he just spoke to me. It was just like so awkward. Very awkward.
Well, I'll tell you another awkward situation. I'd gone out for lunch with friends, and I was literally sat in a restaurant, and I said to my friends, that's my mum sat there on the table next to us. And they were like, what? Are you being serious? And I was like, yeah, that's my mum sat right there. And she just sat there and acted obviously like she didn't know me.
Wow.
That just wasn't nice.
Not only is it nice, it's hurtful. It's hurtful. Very hurtful. So we have Chessa. Chessa, you want to tell us what your challenges you're facing after leaving or when you first left?
Well, a lot of them you guys already touched upon. the number one thing for me was finding my sense of identity, because I started pioneering so young. And like, I know when I was like a preteen and an early teenager, I had my personality budding out of me. But just that pioneer personality took over. So when it came to leaving, I really didn't know how to function. So much of my time had been filled up with the congregation or with field service, or doing different stuff. So having a life without that, I had to learn, first of all, what I like to do, what I'm comfortable with doing, how to make friends, and even like financial stuff. As Jehovah's Witnesses, we're just waiting for Armageddon to come around the corner. So what's the point in having a 401k? Or what's the point in having like a solid house to live in? Or what's the point in planning for anything, really? So I had to learn how to plan ahead, and that's something I'm still catching up to. Um, but that was definitely one thing. And then definitely my mental health too. I learned a lot about myself after I left. Obviously, when you're in the organization, you don't have any coping skills whatsoever, because when you tell them that you're suicidal or that you're depressed, they tell you to go out and service more, or they tell you, oh, talk to brother so and he'll give you some scriptures that will help. So I had a lot of problems, and it took me time when I got out to actually even speak up in therapy, because I would go to a therapist and I would just talk around the subject, constantly. Um, so it would take a long time for them to actually get to what was going on with me at all. I still kind of do that in therapy, but my therapist now, he gets that. So definitely learning how to speak up about myself, learning what my personality is, putting on my real personality instead of the Watchtower's personality, and opening myself up to other people. That was difficult. You have interpersonal relationships when you're in the organization, but they're deep and shallow at the same time. Like, you're connected, but on certain things it's just not safe to be connected. Like, I remember one girl, or one woman rather, she was like in her 70s when I was pioneering. Her name was, well, she was Sister Lyons, and her last name was Lyons, and she loved Stephen King, and nobody knew that. But
What?
yeah, she loved Stephen King. So I was like 14 or 15 at the time. I just started pioneering, and I always got put in her car group, always. So one day, she was like a very grouchy woman, didn't really say much, but she went out in service a lot. So one day we were hanging out, and the other two sisters had went in on like a Bible study. So we were talking, and I told her about the X-Men movie that was coming out, and she was like, "Oh, Hugh Jackman, he can eat crackers in my bed any day." And I was
What?
like, "What?" What?
Wow.
And so,
Yeah.
so that broke through the wall, and we started talking about like Stephen
Yeah.
King, and like her personality shone through, and that was super cool. That was my favorite part, is when I could actually get the personality out of
Yeah,
somebody.
behind the
Um,
person, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That is
So I
so
mean,
cool.
there's a lot that we all go through: finances, lack of education, you name
Mm,
it, being shunned, not having a support system, all
Right.
of that. It's just awful. It takes a while.
Right.
yeah.
And we've all pretty much told the same stories. They all kind of like blend together. We've remixed them a lot, but we all are going through pretty much the same thing. Even if some of the people in the comments are saying that they are going through the same thing too. We have somebody saying Stephen King books and movies were easily a disfellowship and defense. Christine was my favorite. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
I did not
Yeah.
talk to anybody that for sure. She
For
actually lent me the stand. She gave me the stand to read, and that was like one of the first big horror books I read as a kid. I got really into that because of her. It's her fault.
I'm too scared. My nickname really in real life is Chicken Little. I kid you not.
Oh,
Mm,
It was given to me by my aunt when I was very. I don't do scary. I don't want to be scared. I'm okay. That's okay. I leave that for y'all because I'm a fool. Like when I'm scared. No, I remember growing up. Michael Jackson Thriller used to scare the hell out of me when it would come on, and they would just like come down, call me like, Spencer, come down, it's on. I'm like, no, don't do this to me. I would just freak out.
I
And that's
mean,
not even that scary, I hear, because I haven't watched it again. Because I guess, it was bad makeup and stuff, but no. No thanks.
I mean, the crazy thing is that when I was a kid and we were being, well, obviously, Jehovah's Witnesses, whenever something bad happens, like now they must be like circle jerking one another over this COVID-19 stuff.
Did you say
Like,
circle jerking?
like whenever something bad happens in the world, like at all, they go salivating over it and just marinating it. And what's crazy is that we did the same thing when I was a kid. And whenever like some major weather like catastrophe happened, like a hailstorm in our area or something like that, like Hungary is relatively my god, I can't speak. Like Hungary is relatively safe weather-wise. Like we don't have hurricanes and tornadoes, and we leave that to y'all over there. Like
Right.
we're relatively safe. But whenever something like that happened, like I remember once, there was this huge storm, and me and my two friends were walking the dogs, and we got so scared that we straight ran home. Like it was a very, very nasty storm. Like legitimately, shit looked apocalyptic.
Oh
And
wow.
that's what we were thinking. We were like 12 or 13, and we ran home, like screaming that it's gonna be Armageddon, and like praying to Jehovah that we make it and we're on that list, or like it's crazy. And little kids, as small kids as like 12 and 13 are thinking about shit like this. They shouldn't be. Like,
Right. Yeah. So
That's what
Sharon.
kind of
Oh, sorry. Go
about
to me. Cut you off. Go.
about the coronavirus, because I know my mom has her bag ready. She's ready to go, and like all the congregations are closing. So I kind of worry about their mental health right now because of it. All of us
yeah,
were scared this when we would hear that stuff.
They are.
So
Some of them are freaking out. I'm just from what I'm seeing online.
yeah.
Freaking.
Sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
I don't know if Sharon can hear us. Can Sharon hear us? You're on mute.
she's
Oh.
muted.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, I unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can. Gorgeous.
Okay. So, I guess the two challenges, my biggest challenge has been trust. So I could break that down into two different categories. So for me, when you are in a cult, you learn to be very untrusting of the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost makes you, not almost makes you, it makes you paranoid. Like paranoia among, cult members and post-cult victims is very common. So when you're in the organization or you're in the cult Jehovah's Witnesses, you learn that you think you're in this utopian world and you're supposed to trust everyone around you, even if it's a child molester, and they also really push the not taking any brother to court. So anybody in the congregations can really do anything to you or your family, and you can't react to that because you're supposed to be in this unified love bombed world. So you grow up not trusting anybody on the outside. You have no identity, so you don't trust yourself, really. You don't trust your gut, and you're taught to trust pedophiles in the congregation. So it's so twisted. So when you leave, when I left, I found myself in so many abusive relationships. And I think, eventually I'm sure we'll get into a topic on a future show about relationships and, and what that looked like when you leave a cult. But for me, learning who to trust and that everyone's not your enemy, and at the same time it was really a hard reality for me to find out that we live in a me world, and that people in general, they kind of have their own agenda in life, whether it's a business financial agenda, a political agenda, a religious agenda, or just a personal agenda. And so, and because we learned selflessness, you just feel like you're thrown into just, you have to learn who to trust, who not to trust, and you cannot trust everybody when you first leave. And for me, I guess when I first left, it was like when I first realized, oh my God, I came from a cult. I lived 33 years in a cult. So then I was like, so they lied to me. Everyone lied to me. So that means they are a lie. That means everyone else is the truth. Like everyone else has, I can trust. And so I learned the hard way that you can't trust everybody. And even within our own activist world, even though we've all been through similar things, we still have to be very careful, even in the XJW community, who to trust, who not to trust, and how to protect yourself. So I would say that's the main thing, trust. The other thing for me, just like you guys already touched on, was survival. So for me, when I left with 4 young children, ages 7, 9, 11, and 13. And I had to work 55 to 70 hours a week to take care of them by myself, no family support. And so I just, the survival part, and there isn't really anything essentially set up yet that is a legitimate organization that I know of to actually help ex-Jehovah's Witnesses without taking advantage of people's money. And that's all I'm going to say about that. but there's such a need for help with housing, and we found ourselves homeless. We found ourselves in domestic violence shelters and in the city mission, and I'll just, this is the last thing I'll say. Throughout the years, I've done a lot of programs to help people, and I used to run support groups in 3 states, the one I used to live in and two around me. So one time I got a phone call from an ex-elder who was from Georgia originally, and he had found himself homeless. He had turned to alcoholism, and I think he hadn't eaten in a couple of days. So, anyways, it was pouring down rain. I jumped in my car with a couple of bags of groceries from my cupboard and refrigerator, and I drove down the highway, raced to the highway. It was like an hour from my home, and I took him food in the pouring rain. And I mean, that just shows the extent of what men, women, and children deal with when they leave Jehovah's Witnesses. So anyways, that's all I have to say.
Sorry,
I can't hear
you. Yeah, my mic was mute, and I'm just talking.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Or no?
Yeah, we can hear you really
good. I hear you. Okay.
Okay, so hang on one second. So you guys can't hear me. I'm just okay. So great. Sorry. We're all. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Well, anyway, thank you so much, guys. I'm going to look at some of these comments before we go. We had a question from one of our viewers here who's asking us, what are your favorite ways to engage in self-care now that you're free of the cult? Maybe we can answer that really quickly, and then we can wrap up here. For me, I love to write. I'm just a writer. I when I'm writing, it takes me into a different world. And now that I'm not a Jehovah's Witness anymore, I can write about what I want to write about. If you're an artist, that you kind of know what that means, because there was only so many things, so much I could write about. or certain subjects I could write about. I couldn't write about romance because I mean, if they're engaging in premarital sex or something like that, okay, yeah, that would be a huge no-no or something like that. I remember one time my mother got really mad at a story that I wrote and ripped it up, so I didn't want to chance that again. But yeah, I'm a writer. I like to write. So what about you, Emma? What do you do for self-care?
Probably to distract myself, craft stuff. That keeps me kind of sane. Anything, even knitting, crochet. I design and print my own t-shirts for myself. Yeah, anything along craft line. Then, yeah, it engages my brain.
What about you, Chessa?
Indoors, I like, I used to make wishing candles, like handmade wishing candles and stuff like that. So I
Aw.
like crafting and arts and like painting, drawing, stuff like that, writing. But outdoors, and this is the number one, backcountry camping. And I didn't know that I'd like it so much, but like getting out of everything and just getting out in the wild, um, that's so cathartic. You just detach from everything and you're just surrounded by all this beauty and it's just the best. It's been one of the most therapeutic things for me. So crafting, backcountry camping, stuff like that.
All right. What about you, Molly?
Well, for me, there is like mental health care and like self care is just saying no whenever I want to get a major fund. Like you never could say no as a major league. Service sister, of course. Change this sister, do this sister. You could never say no. So like right now, I'm throwing around no as if that's the only word that exists. I'm like no, 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 no. And other than that, I read. I read and I engage in any kind of like art that I like. I engage and like traveling and like Spencer said, I write too. And yes, it's a very liberating thing that you can create characters who can like personalize your yourself, but in different aspects of your personality. And I would be insane without writing. So that's a major one.
Well, yeah, and then we get to write about magic now if we want to. I used to always want to write
Yes,
about magic
honey.
or some type of, I could have been, what's her name, who did the Lord of the
J.K.
Rings and
Rowling.
all of that. I could have wrote that if I would have had a chance. No, I'm playing. I would actually never seen Lord of the Rings, so I don't even know. I'm just saying, it just seemed like an epic movie. I could have did something that epic, but could I have wrote that as a Jehovah Witness? No, no, no
I don't
Wait,
way.
know.
do you mean Elvira? Are you talking about Elvira?
Yes, yes,
It's
yeah.
Princess of the Dark.
No way I could have wrote a character like that. And wait a minute. I mean, Michael Jackson got disfellowship, well, not disfellowship, or I talked to, or whatever. I forget what the urban legend or the story is for Thriller, which is what I was scared of. Well, I actually mentioned it earlier. All
I
right,
was I
please
was afraid
go
of the
ahead.
Twilight. I was afraid of the Twilight Zone.
Were you?
I was afraid of like everything, but now I'm like watching horror movies without explaining. I watched the Korean most messed up horror movies that ever graced this planet, and I don't even blink. I'm like, okay,
I used to get scared, freaked out when the X Files music used to come on. Like I'd be like, "Whoa, which TV has that on right now? Turn it off! Turn it
Whoa.
off!" Oh, is that not creepy? Is that music not cute, creepy? It is really creepy. I'm like, I knew the music when it would come on too. What about you, PJ? What are you? Well, I know because I know what you engage in. But why
You
don't you tell
know,
everybody else?
I do a lot of crafts. I
Yeah.
crochet. I paint. I decorate the house. All kinds of stuff. I like to take walks out in nature and take pictures of the nature as I'm walking.
I'm gonna start
Just
doing that. I just bought
anything
a
to get your
camera.
mind busy.
Yeah. Yeah, and off of what you're thinking about in the moment. What about
Right.
you, Sharon? Self-care?
Well, I wake Jesus up early in the morning on Sunday mornings when we both don't have to work. when he wants to sleep in, and I'm like, hey, let's get up, and he goes, and go get a McDonald's coffee, and I'm like, because that's my favorite. I love McDonald's coffee. And I'm like, yep. And then so he's like, all right, honey. So we go to the beach and we got married there and we hang out there and I just love it. And then I also like to burn sage, and I love that smell. And I'm like, the rest of you, I love the outdoors. And one of my goals is to get a Native American flute, the wooden flutes, and I
Ooh.
want to learn how to play that.
Just a funny side note about the stage. You know those like incense that you can burn? Like
Yeah.
in my JW family, they couldn't do that because allegedly it would attract Satan and the demon.
Like
Yeah.
that is so ridiculous
Yeah.
now, isn't it? It's
No
so
kidding,
Yeah.
ridiculous
no kidding.
that we
It's
thought
like
that.
we were,
Yeah. Well, we weren't supposed to have wind chimes or
Yes.
incense. It was, considered bad.
Yeah,
I
it's
did
supposed to be
I
bad.
haven't heard about the wind chimes, but I know that these are like very funny. Like we were not beaten for that one, but we were like yelled at for like an hour straight because I brought over like an incense from my mom because it smelled nice. It was like some raspberry shake or something like that. And oh my god, they were mad.
Yes. Well, you guys, we have reached our almost what, the 2 hour mark or the hour and a half mark.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yay! We're there. We're there. We have another question from another audience person. But what we're gonna do, and it's another one from Del Victory. What advice do you have for PIMOs or PMOs or physically and mentally out to care for themselves while planning their exit? That is probably another show, probably all in itself. Probably another. So that's definitely we. And by the way, you guys, we are looking for topics. So if you have any topics or have any questions for us, make sure you comment below. In this particular question, we're going to take this question to the glass discussion room. If you guys are not familiar with that, if you're on Facebook, we just started a group. What I would say, what, a couple of days ago? Was it a couple of days ago? I think so. A couple of days ago,
Yeah.
where we go into the room and we talk about all the things that we're talking about here. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a post, meet us in the glass discussion room, and then we'll talk about some of the advice that we have for physically PMOs. Is it PMOs? Do they call them P? I think that's cute. PMO.
Yeah.
PMOs to care for themselves while planning their exit. So guys, thank you so much for joining all of us. Anybody have some last words before we go? No?
I will say
Live
one thing
long
on
and
the
prosper.
chemo thing. So it's good to have Facebook for stuff like that, but I started a Discord chat for Use Our Voice and for Memorial so that people can kind of stay anonymous, because a lot of PMOs get shy of Facebook because it gives out so much of their personal information, or they're afraid their friends or family will see them. So if you're PMO and you're afraid of anybody catching your identity, all of us are probably going to work on like having Discord chats or having a Reddit subreddit for you guys to go to. Our XJW is an awesome Reddit subreddit. So there's some other ways that PMOs can help themselves, and other ways that we can do our activism so that everybody can access it. Because on Facebook sometimes it limits the access, I guess.
Yes, and to segue, you guys, we now have our web, not a website. I'm just making up stuff. We would like to have a website soon. uh, we have, in addition to the Facebook group, we're working on a blog, right?
Yeah.
So we'll give you more updates about that soon. Oh, we got a Twitter running. Yay! Instagram is up. Woo woo. And I think we have, besides Instagram and Twitter, what else do we need to be on, y'all? Don't talk about no TikToks and all of that, because I don't this TikTok and everybody doing, I don't get it. What is it? Just like videos or something? I don't get it. I really honestly don't. My kids is TikToking, y'all. All right. So before we go, we have a lot of comments, guys. We're gonna go into the comments with you guys and continue after the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again the same time next week, 3:30 Pacific time, right? On the
Yeah.
Sunday. And
Yeah.
you guys probably been flooded with a lot of our posts reminding you guys to be here. We're gonna do that still next week. So you make sure you guys join us, okay? All right. Thank
You will get
you.
awesome.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.